This video is about calling functions in Python. I'm going to use the print function as my running example. Most programming languages have something akin to print. Most functions accept some sort of input, and the technical term for the input to a function is an argument. Here I show print with the argument hello. An argument can be a literal value, such as the number 4 or the string hello, or it can be the value of a variable. So here I have print and I'm calling it with the variable named num1 in between the parentheses. Or an argument can be something more complicated, such as the result of an expression. Over here, I'm calling print, and the argument is the result of adding the value of num1 to the value of num2. Let's step through that code in Python Tutor. Okay, I have first an assignment statement in which I assign a literal value of 42 to a variable named num1, and then another assignment statement where I assign the literal value 31 to a variable named num2, and then I call print, passing it the argument hello, and hello appears. Next, I call print, and I'm passing it the value of the variable num1. So what Python is doing is looking up the value of num1 and passing in 42. So it prints 42. And finally, I have a mathematical expression, the result of which becomes the argument for my function. Python looks up num1, gets 42, looks up num2, gets 31, adds them together, gets 73, and then prints that. Many functions have more than one argument possible, and print is one of those. You can print more than one thing by passing in more than one argument. And in the examples that I have here, I'm using what's called positional notation. So Python prints the value of the first argument first, then the value of the second argument second, and the value of the third argument third. In this example, I print numzar, then the value of num1, and the value of num2. In this example, I print their sum is, and then the value of num1 added to the value of num2. Let's step through that code. We have the same assignment statements we had in the previous example. Then we print hello with just one argument, and then we print numzar with 2 additional arguments. And each one is evaluated separately. We look at the literal value numzar, then we look up the value num1, then num2, and it prints all 3. And finally, we print the sum is, and just like in the previous example, the value of num1 is looked up, the value of num2 is looked up, and then the values are summed. So we print their sum is 73. But many functions have, in functions, the parameters have names, and we can call functions with what are called keyword arguments. And that's where we refer directly to the name of the function, the name of the parameter. So here's the documentation for print, and we can see that it takes in a bunch of things that need to be printed, but then it has a parameter named sep for separator. And by default, its value is just a space. And the documentation here tells us that it will separate each of the objects that's being printed with whatever is the value passed in here. To specify that, I will use the keyword sep then. So here I'm calling print with num1, num2, and then I'm indicating that as a separator, I want to use the plus sign. This is called keyword argument because I put the name of the parameter first and then the equal sign. And This is a fairly complex example because I'm using 2 positional arguments and then a keyword argument. Down here, I'm attempting to use a keyword argument and then a positional argument, but this is not legal. Any keyword argument needs to be followed by all keyword arguments. So you can put positional arguments in the keyword, but not the other way around. Let's look at Python tutor. Here we have the same assignment statements. Oops, but I grabbed the code that doesn't work. And now we can see the error that is reported to us. It says the positional argument follows a keyword argument. We can't have a positional argument after a keyword argument. It simply won't work. So we comment it out and then we run. And we can run our assignment statement. And our next assignment statement. And then we print, looks at the value of num1, looks at the value of num2, and it says, I've got a separator for you. So it's going to write 42 plus 31. And we are done with that. Let's move to a more complex example. We can call a Python function with the output from another function. So I talked about how we can have more complex things such as mathematical expressions as arguments, but we can also actually take the output of another function and pass it in. So here I'm using 3 functions that are built into Python: len, which provides the length of a list, print, and sum, which sums up the values of the elements of a list. I first make a variable named nums that has the value 4, 5, 6, and then 7. I call the length len function with nums as its input, and its output is the value, is the length. I'm going to store that in a variable named n, and then I can do a print statement just like we did in the previous slides, where we print the length. We print with a literal string that says what it is we're printing, and then we have a comma, and then we have a variable name. We look that up, and that's the value that's printed. But we could do it directly. We could skip the whole process of using the variable and instead just take this function call and put it here. And the way Python will execute this is it will call print, and then it evaluates what its arguments are. It's going to say, ooh, that's a literal. I know what to do that. I'm just going to pass that right along in. But this one, I've got to call a function. I passed in the list nums, which I had to look up. And so I have to pass in the list that nums refers to, which is 5, 6, 7. The value 3 is returned, and it prints that. Finally, I can include the output of functions in expressions. So in this case, sum and len both return numbers, so I can divide one by the other, and that gets the mean, and I can print that out. Let's look at Python tutor. I have my assignment statement. Nums is the list, 5, 6, 7. And then I assign n to have the number of elements in nums. Then finally, I print when I'm accessing a variable, value is 3. Then I print again where I'm evaluating len directly in there. I get the same thing. And then I call sum, passing in nums, it gets me a number. I call len, passing in numbers, it gets me another number. And I do the division. And then I print out the result, which is 6. Thank you.